welcome to NAPOD, where we provide NA speaker meetings and workshops in a podcast. We are an ad-free podcast, and if you enjoy listening, please help us to be self-supporting by visiting napod.xyz, look for the donate link, and drop $1 or $2 in the virtual basket. If you're also in AA or have friends that are, please tell them about our other podcast, Sobercast. Sobercast features AA speakers and workshops in the same format as NAPOD. We upload a new speaker every day, and it's easy to subscribe by searching for Sobercast, that's 2 words, on any podcast player app, or go to Sobercast.com. Enjoy the podcast, and thanks for listening.
Tonight is Sunday, the 30th of October, 2005, and the Sunday night speakers meeting of Narcotics Anonymous welcomes our first speaker, Alicia.
All right.
Hi, my name's Alicia. I'm an addict.
Alicia.
I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that I have a commitment at this meeting that's helped me being able to stay in contact with Narcotics Anonymous at least one time a week. And it's funny because today I was on my way here, and it's my brother's birthday today. And so we were talking on the phone, and we were chatting, and he was telling me about this book that I should, check out because he said it had to do with, my people, and so I asked him what it was about and to summarize it, and he basically said it was a guy who had struggled with drug addiction and how he went to different treatment centers in and out, and his life with that. And he said that he also mentioned, though, that today this person is not in a 12-step program and doesn't believe in them. And I was just like, well, and I know for me today in this moment, truly deeply, that the 12 steps are the only thing that's worked for me, when it comes to this disease. I grew up in Detroit, Michigan. I was born and raised there. I know it seems a little unusual. I don't know why, but people are taken back by it. And it probably has to do with, the way I appear, and I think that's something that I struggle with. From where I grew up, I always felt different, I was like one of the 4 Asian kids in my school, but, I wasn't a complete dork. I had to be popular. And so, in the popular crowd, I was the only, Asian girl, and then it just boiled down to things where I could say oh, I'm left-handed, and I'm the only left-handed girl in this class, this really sucks. And, I always strove to be different, and that always makes for loneliness. And that did, as my life continued, I started rebelling, and I picked up my first drug, and I blacked out, that same night. And for me at that moment was I felt complete comfort, and I couldn't wait to do it again, and I was off. So I'm in high school, and my solution to the way I'm feeling and solution to my problems is to move out of Michigan, because Michigan is clearly the problem, and the people in it and the people I'm surrounded by. So I think by going to some really cool East Coast community is going to solve all my problems, and people are going to begin to acknowledge what a cool person I am, and I'm going to finally be able to surround myself by people who are at my level. So I get out there, and I immediately drink my way out of college, and I get arrested for the first time. Well, actually, no, that was my second arrest. My first arrest was for shoplifting when I was 16. So, but this was directly drug-related, and I got pulled over in front of the White House while I was on a date driving his car. And so they sent me and it's weird because I was in Washington, D.C., and D.C. is in a state, so I went to different jails, and it was, and I was still drunk, and it was crazy, and I had to rely on people in my dorm to, get me out of jail and bring me back home, and I thought to myself, what I had been telling myself, all along, that I have just really bad luck. Of course, out of all the girls in the school, I am the only one who will go, driving drunk, get pulled over, and go to jail, and and I didn't want to tell anyone. I wasn't going to tell my parents. I wasn't going to tell anybody in my life because I just was like, I'm going to handle this by myself. Like, I'm an independent girl. So I did that, but I got kicked out of school, and my parents brought my butt back to Michigan, and I started to fall further into my addiction, and I started picking up different things, and I never thought, like, my brother, when I was in high school, my brother was using, the illegal substances, and I thought to myself, like, I would never do that. I'm just going to do the legal ones, the liquid one, alcohol. So, but I did. When I came back from D.C., I just fell into, like, this loneliness, and they sent me to treatment centers, and it never worked. I just showed up really high, and I thought alcohol was my problem, so I was going to just do other things, that were going to just make me peaceful. So that's what I did, and within less than a year, I got arrested for the same thing that I had initially been arrested for in Washington, D.C., and this time I drove my car into a ditch. I don't remember what happened, and I woke up in a hospital, and I very easily could have died that night. I don't even remember, like, what the hell happened, but I woke up in a hospital room, and my parents were in the corner of the room, and I woke up and was irate and was going to, like, beat the nurse up and all this and that. So after that happened, I went to jail for, like, a longer period of time, and the court ordered me to go to, 12-step meetings, so I was going, and the way they were doing it in Michigan was, like, we had little tables that you would, like, sit at, and everyone would go around and share. So it's almost like sharing's more intense there because everyone has, like, a good, like, 5 to 8 minutes, to share. And so I was like, I can talk some happy bullshit, So that's what I did, every time I went. And I think from doing that, I started sort of getting involved in some sort of process. And when I went to jail, I remember it was a very hard 7 days for me, and the thing that actually got me through it, surprisingly, was the serenity prayer. The courage to accept things. The courage, okay. So, anyways, I get out of there, and this is where the bottom, my bottom hit me, was I was just sleeping with drug dealers, every boyfriend I had was a drug dealer, go figure, and, and that's what happened, and, I got involved in an underground scene in Detroit, and I was in abandoned warehouses every night thinking, like, I was partying like a rock star, thinking, like, this is the life that I want, although I don't have, like, a job, like, nothing, like, my parents, supported me very, like, I had a car, that I told them I was going to go to one of my court-ordered meetings and not come back for, like, 3 or 4 days, that kind of thing, and that happened, like, every week, and, and towards the end, I knew it was the end because my dad was, like, probably the best enabler, and when I asked him for $5, he wouldn't give it to me, and that's when I knew, like, things were going to change, and I think that when I ended up, there was one night when I was in Detroit, and I was sitting there, and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't speak any words, and I wanted to say something, but I think, like, the spiritual disease of this program just hit me, or the spiritual aspect of this disease just hit me because I wanted to talk and I couldn't, and I know it's because I was so sick of hearing the bullshit that came out of my mouth, all the time, that I hadn't gotten honest, and I think the first bit of honesty that I saw when I got clean was the fact that I admitted that I did have a problem, and that's something that I couldn't admit. So there was that. I stopped talking, all the jail stuff or getting arrested. Then what else? Let's see. They sent me to a treatment center, and as soon as I got out, I hooked up with some girl, and we started getting high together, and that's where, I ended up back in the warehouse scene, and it was terrible, and, there's been moments where my mom just wouldn't talk to me, she was so mad, and just the destruction that I saw in my family, between everybody, like my mom pretty much blaming my father for the way I was, and everyone arguing. It was, and then me, of course, taking all this responsibility and feeling all that weight of it, just wanting to relieve it by getting high, and picking up another drug. So that one treatment center they sent me to, this last time I went back to jail, and I did less than 30 days there. So when I was in there, I had like probably the longest time clean when I was in there, and from the first time I had ever picked up. And when I was in there, I thought to myself that I wanted something different, and the only thing that I knew was when I was at that treatment center, and that I had to go back there to do whatever. And I think that's when the spiritual principle of willingness came in. And I was surrounded by all these ladies who were talking about, like, what they were going to do when they got out, like, they were going to do this and that and go here and there. And I just had to, like, sit there and nod and be like, yeah, but I knew that, like, my life was going to change, and I just didn't know how, but I knew that I need to get back to this one treatment center. So as soon as I got out, I went back to this treatment center, and I spent a couple weeks there. And for my aftercare plan, they told me they wanted to send me, like, far away from Detroit, in the middle of the state, in a city called Lansing. And I was like, hell no! Like, no, I don't want to leave, out of my comfort zone. But, that's where willingness kicked in again, and I became willing to do whatever they told me to do, and I still wasn't talking very much, and I didn't know how to communicate. And, like, when I was in that treatment center for, like, 2 weeks, I remember there was a little spiritual awakening that happened for me when I was waiting for, like, for one of those lectures to get started, and I was, like, sitting in that room, and I just remember looking out the window and thinking, like, I'd been spending all this time pretty much almost dying, like, close to death. I'd spent all these, moments being very close to death, and for some reason, as I sat in that room that day, I was thinking to myself, like, I don't want to die anymore, I want to live, I don't want to die anymore. And so little by little, I felt like things were creeping into my life, and so I went to that long-term treatment center, and that place was like a 90-day program, but I did less than 90 days, and I was like, what the hell am I doing here? But it felt so much safer than being, in the streets of Detroit, for sure. So I was surrounded by these women who were, like, twice my age, like, grandmothers, and, like, I had not had any of the life experience that any of these women had, but, I try not to see that. Like, one thing that I picked up on early on was that if I focus on the fact that, how different I am from you, like, I am never going to get this, I knew that if I focus on the fact that I may be the only, like, left-handed addict, I may never be able to work a fourth step, like, and, so that's what I saw, and so I pretty much try to keep myself as blind as possible, and just try to relate with the feelings that were going on, in sharing in the meetings. I went to a meeting every day. They exposed us to 3 different fellowships, and so that was the freedom we had while I was living there. And it was with 13 other women, and up to that point, I had not had, like, any true female friends. Like, all the female friends I had in my life were very, like, messed up, codependent relationships, and I think the female company that I kept up to that point were just people that, I could compare myself to and say that I was better than. Because, like, my 2 girlfriends were, like, one was a stripper and the other was, like, a teenage mom, got pregnant when she was 15 or whatever. And I could, sit there and compare myself and say, like, I didn't have to go there. Like, I'm better than you, But I knew that I was just as bad as them. Like, that I had lowered my life, to such a point where I was in such in confusion and, like, a place of desperation that, in denial, that I couldn't see exactly where I got myself. So I made my life new through the 12 steps and everything, like, I didn't get it. I think my first year of staying clean was just about staying clean, you know? I had a couple commitments. I was, like, co-chair of H&I. I had a home group, and I worked with, that year I'd gone through, like, 3 sponsors, you know, because of circumstances. And they weren't, like, the sponsorship relationships that I had weren't like, okay, go fuck off, I don't want you to sponsor me anymore, you know. We were able to end it, you know, to the point where there was an understanding and communication of, like, okay, this isn't working out, you know, and I need to find something else. And finding these sponsors and having, you know, a sponsor in my life has taught me what a real relationship is supposed to be about, you know, and keeping that communication open. And calling somebody every day for 30 days in a row has taught me, you know, how to respect somebody and how to, like I said, the communication part of a relationship, which I never had. And so I started working with a sponsor, and she started giving me writing assignments, and my first writing assignment was on honesty, which is probably why I sort of talk about it a lot when people ask me to share, because, you know, the first honest thing that I really believe that came out of my mouth was the fact that I was an addict and I had a problem and I needed help, you know, and I think, actually, so that was my first writing assignment, but the first, you know, spiritual principle of this program that I think that I started applying in my life was the willingness. You know, I had this willingness to go through the program. I had a willingness to do whatever they told me to do. And I kept an open mind, you know, whether I was living with these, like, grandmothers or not, you know. I thought that this could work for me. If all these people surrounding me were saying that they were staying clean for, like, 6 months or a year, you know, I don't see why that could have, you know, lessened my chances at all. So, I'm living in this small town, and, you know, it's like there's nothing appealing about it to me. And as soon as I get out of this house, I move in with somebody that I was in treatment with, or in this house with. And she ends up going back out and, like, stealing my stereo. And when I realized that my stereo was gone, I wanted to freak out, and I didn't know what to do, so I called 3 women in the program, and they came over right away. You know, and that's how I saw it first work in my life, saw how the program worked, and how the women were there for me. So I continue on, you know, regardless of my roommate, and just continued doing, you know, what I was supposed to do, and I kept things very simple, you know. The first apartment I had was, like, 2 blocks away from the treatment center. And then, like, I work, like, maybe less than a mile away, and I took a class, you know, down the street from my apartment at the local community college. My great enabling parents wanted to give me a car as soon as I got out of the treatment center, but I was just like, I had to say no because I knew if I had a car, I'd probably drive right down to Detroit as soon as I got it. And I couldn't put myself in that place. So I didn't. So I rode the bus, you know, and I rode the bus as long as, you know, I felt necessary, because I still at that point did not trust myself. Like, today I still don't really trust myself, you know, a lot of times, but it's definitely gotten a lot better. So, you know, I'm running the bus and I'm keeping it simple, and life starts to feel a lot better. I don't have that much time left, I don't think. So, let's see. Fast forward, I have maybe about 14 months, and I'm like, oh, I made it through this year. This is crazy. And my sister calls me up from New York and says she's living in San Francisco at the time. And so she says she's moving down to LA, and why don't I come live with her? And I was like, hell, I've got a year. Why the hell not? And I knew that I wasn't going to stay in Lansing forever, so I thought, oh, this must be from God. So I was like, okay, let me pack up my shit and, you know, go on out there. And to me, like, I knew that Narcotics Anonymous started in Los Angeles, or Southern California, so I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the NA Mecca. Like, this is going to be awesome. And I had, like, all these expectations, just, like, hugs everywhere, and, you know, like, all this, and happy, good stuff, and, you know, it wasn't like that. And, I mean, I see many handshakes going on, and, you know, that's okay, because, you know, I do that too now, but, so I'm out here, and I move in with my sister. My sister and I my sister didn't really see a lot of me going through my disease. We lived together maybe for a short period of time in Washington, D.C. That's when I was, like, beating her up and doing all sorts of things. So we're living together, and it really sucks. And so the only thing that's really saving me is going to meetings. And I get a commitment Friday night over here on the west side, and that became my home group. And I just kept going to meetings no matter what. And the hard thing about living out in L.A. from where I came from, or where I was at that point in my recovery, was the fact that I had, like, a little over a year clean, and I thought to myself, like, you know, I was really proud of myself, you know, because I came from a very small area of Michigan where literally we had maybe, like, at the most 2 meetings a night, you know, or maybe, like, 1 a night or something, 1 to 2 meetings a night. It was a very small area, and so I came out here, and, God, I forgot where it was. Okay, so I came out here, and it was very humbling to me. I was proud of my clean time. I was proud of, like, how far I had come, and I felt like a newcomer all over again. And it wore on me, you know, and but I'm grateful for the experience, you know, because it got me in touch with being a newcomer again, you know. It got me in touch with, like, how much work I need to put into my recovery in order to stay here. Like, I had to put forth, you know, getting phone numbers and actually using those phone numbers and using my literature and praying to my higher power, you know, in order to keep what I had, you know. And not to be afraid and not to be in that place of fear. And I think for my first year here, I struggled with that a lot. And I came into meetings and I was crying and, you know, I was just like, oh my God, and, you know, and then of course I turned it all into the guy and, like, focused on, like, a certain obsession, you know, I have that, you know, I still deal with, but I'm learning, you know, that there's different aspects of my disease, you know, that can be taken care of through the steps. So, and that's what happened. Like, after that first year was over, though, I felt more comfortable, you know, around you guys, and I can't believe, you know, it's been 3 years since I've been in LA, but it has been, and, it's not been the easiest road, and my sister moved back to Michigan less than a year ago, and that's something like that a year ago was very hard for me because she pretty much, like, flipped out and had a breakdown, and she ended up in a mental institution, and it was really hard for me to see her that way. And my parents had to come out here and stay with her. And, I don't know what came over me. It was, like, a certain shame or, and I guess it was just really hard because, you know I care about my sister so much, and I would totally cut her down and diss her all the time to my friends, like, how she was, like, this good little Christian girl and I couldn't stand it, and I would tell her, like, I'd be having, like, these orgies and stuff just to, like, you know, make fun of her, but it was really hard, you guys, and I didn't go to meetings for like a week, and after that week I decided to come to a meeting, and I didn't think I had to share about it, so I did it, and I just kept coming to meetings, and I finally opened up about it, you know, and how much it had broken my heart. So fast forward to today, and what it's like now, I feel like I'm on a 4th step right now, and I feel like in the step working guide it talks about those layers of the onion peeling, and I don't know, I feel like if I could sort of like group up the experience I've had in my recovery, like there was that first 2 years of building that foundation and, you know, keeping me here, and the next 2 years has been really about, you know, trying to get out, I guess, you know, trying to scrape some of that past crap out and, you know, finally making some really cool changes besides just staying clean. So, that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please help us improve our ranking so others can find us by putting a review on Stitcher, iTunes, or your favorite podcast index. Nawpod is ad-free thanks to the folks supporting the show with $1 or more per month. If you enjoy listening, you can join them by going to notpod.xyz and looking for the donate link. Thank you for listening. Have a great day.